A unique and colorful sight in Chiapa de Corzo, a city in southern Mexico. Masked dancers, known as parachicos, stream into the streets every January in an event that incorporates dancing, music, crafts, food, and commemoration of 3 Catholic saints. The tradition is recognized as an example of intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO. It involves teaching the dance and teaching the techniques of mask making, but one participant, one of the parachicos, says this isn't a celebration. Instead, it's what people want for the world: safety, respect, and love. Another says it's a wonderful experience because it allows the dancers to relive what their ancestors handed down. The festivities run from morning till night each day during what's known as the Great Feast, and that lasts from the 4th to the 23rd. Hi, I'm Carl Azuz. Next today on The World from A to Z is what's being called a diplomatic breakthrough in the Middle East, even as the war between Israel and Hamas continues. More international aid in the form of medicine is now rolling into Gaza. This is the Palestinian territory controlled by Hamas, the militant group that launched a surprise attack against Israelis on October 7th, prompting Israel to declare war afterward. In its assault, Hamas killed an estimated 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, and took about 250 others as hostages. Dozens of those hostages were released during a pause in the fighting in November. That was in exchange for hundreds of Palestinians who were being held in Israeli prisons. But Hamas is still holding hostages from Israel. Officials believe as many as 130 or more, and the medicine that arrived this week is intended for them and for injured Palestinians. Gaza's health ministry, which is controlled by Hamas, says more than 24,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict. International observers don't know how many of those are civilians and how many are Hamas fighters. And despite the diplomatic agreement that increased the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, experts say much more is needed, and there's no indication that the war is nearing an end.
World of knowledge. In medical terms, the word congelation is related to what condition? Diabetes, concussion, halitosis, frostbite. Congelation, when something changes from a fluid state to a solid one, is related to frostbite.
And that's a very real threat going into the weekend, with hard freeze warnings in effect from the American Midwest to the north and southeast. Forecasters expect it'll be a few days before these areas begin to thaw out. And if you find yourself needing or wanting to venture out into the cold, there are a few things you can do to protect yourself from frostbite.
In frigid cold, it can happen within minutes. Emergency physician Mark Conroy with Ohio State's Wexner Medical Center says the parts of our bodies that are farthest away from the core are most vulnerable to frostbite, including ears, nose, fingers, and toes.
By the time you hit true frostbite, when you're damaging the tissues of your body, things are typically numb, so you don't necessarily feel them.
That's why you need to know the signs, including a white or grayish yellow skin area, skin that feels unusually firm or waxy, and numbness. If any of these symptoms are present, Conroy says to get out of the cold right away, shed wet clothing, and start to slowly rewarm the body with dry blankets and lukewarm water.
You don't want to, go too close to a fire because some of the ways that we can rewarm ourselves can actually hurt us further.
You can also help prevent frostbite by wearing waterproof clothing and footwear. Wear gloves and keep other extremities like ears and your nose covered as well. For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither.
On this date in world history. In the island nation of Philippines, a church was completed on January 19th, 1607 that's still standing. San Agustin is the oldest church in the country. It's withstood earthquakes, typhoons, wars, and political upheaval, and in 1993, it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And on this date in 1981, an agreement was reached between the United States and Iran, which had been at odds over events related to Iran's Islamic Revolution in the late 1970s. As part of the deal, Iran would release 52 American civilians that had been held hostage there for more than a year. The U.S. would release Iranian assets, including money, and promised not to get involved in Iranian politics. But the relationship between the two countries continued to worsen, and they remain rivals today. Next, trained service dogs can help people in many ways. The cost of that training, typically between $20,000 and $30,000, can put them out of reach. Some organizations are teaming up with businesses to ease that financial burden, but there's still a wait list for the dogs.
Joe Nieves and his best friend Jem are inseparable.
Left. She knows when I'm having a bad day. She knows when I'm anxious. She's like my co-pilot. That's it.
The retired Army Staff Sergeant struggles with post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder, exacerbated, he says, by his time in Iraq.
She's a good girl.
Jem is there to help.
If I'm really depressed and I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, she'll come. She'll lay right next to me. Just having that presence has really done a lot for me and my mental health.
The pair were brought together by a collaboration between service dog organization Canine Companions and the Penn Fed Credit Union's Foundation as part of an initiative to provide support animals for veterans and others with a disability. But the program currently has a 2-year wait list because there aren't enough people like Jem's puppy raiser Wendy and Andrea McCarran.
I'm the president of the Penn Fed Foundation and a 6-time puppy raiser. People ask me every day, how can you love, nurture, raise, train a puppy from age 8 weeks to 18 months and then say goodbye? And to be honest, it's brutal.
She says sharing the responsibility with colleagues and meeting the veterans can ease the heartbreak.
It is hard to say goodbye, but it's better to say hello to the veteran whose life was changed.
Veterans like Nieves, who says Jem makes him feel like a better person.
Another story we covered this week that's related to mental health concerns the winter blues, when cold weather and short days can bring you down. My colleague Lindsay has some of your strategies for fighting it.
Thanks, Carl, and thoughtful strategies they are. Mr. Muffler's class from Medford High School in Medford, Oregon suggests snuggling with pets, drawing, listening to music, volunteering in the community, and eating burritos. From Ms. Colwell's adaptive curriculum students at J.C. Booth Middle in Peachtree City, Georgia. Some of our students, like Jonathan, said that they combat the winter blues by playing basketball. It is important to keep active and physically busy. Pets also help, and it's important to walk our dogs, too. Doing Music Trivia Monday every single week is an idea from Mr. Damlow's class at Belle Plaine High in Belle Plaine, Minnesota. Some suggestions from Mrs. Barca's students at Black Hawk Middle School in Bensonville, Illinois. Get outside and play in the snow. Get creative, cook or bake something new. Jam to music. And Mrs. Drain's class from Roosh Outdoor Community School in Jacksonville, Oregon suggests people take part in productive activities that make you feel accomplished. Playing with pets, playing a sport, and watching the world from A to Z with Carl Azuz. Extra credit for them. Thanks to all of you for watching and for your fantastic comments. I'm Lindsay Wolfgang Mast.
A special administrative region of China is first today on our World of Viewers. Miss Rendell's or Rendell's class is watching from Hong Kong International School in Hong Kong. Welcome. And across the Pacific, we're running with the Huskies, the ones at Centennial High School. Hello to Mr. Calzada's class in Corona, California. An SUV in Tennessee recently came to be in a predicament. It got stuck in a snowy ditch, and its 350 horsepower wasn't enough to pull it out. Thankfully, an Amish man who lived nearby harnessed the help of his horses, and when actual horsepower was added to truck power and people power, it equaled enough power to get the truck the traction it needed to be on its way. When a problem rears up and the horseshoe fits their unbridled energy, don't whinny or equine about it or horse around. You just giddy up and gallop to call the main mammal that comes dressage to impress. There's nothing they can't or do once they tune out the naysayers. I'm Carl Azuz, and Fridays are awesome. Thank you for spending part of yours with the world from A to Z. You mean the world to me.